Today we're going to talk about how Standard has finally died in paper. So there was a really hot tweet from none other than I believe he's Vice President of Wizards of the Coast. That's right, Vice President, Big Honcho is up there. Mark Rosewater's looking at your job, Aaron. And he had something to say. Over the past few years, Standard play has dried up in many stores. I have my own list of possible reasons, but I'd love to hear from you about your store community. Why has sanctioned Standard play declined relative to other formats in your store? And oh boy, do I have some things to say about this, and I'm sure other people do as well. This might be a really unpopular take, but Standard is garbage. It always has been at a competitive level. At a casual level, it's been perfect. It's that entry point people always say, oh, you know, this you can make a deck for like 30 or 50 bucks and do whatever you want. And I always thought Standard was like a really good casual format. But as a competitive format, it's nonsense. There's a lot of situations where it's like a 2 or 3 or 1 deck format. It's so hard for Wizards of the Coast to basically construct a really diverse metagame, especially when they want to be pushing so many bomb cards. It's always been like that. There's got to be some bomb cards in the Standard, in the new sets that help sell the box. Always has been like that, and it makes for awful Standard environments. And because Standard traditionally was the premier competitive format, you were forced to play Standard. Even though it's not really that good of a format, everyone just knew that was your route to getting to the Pro Tour. If you want to be a pro, if you want to be on the Pro Tour, and believe me, a lot of people followed this cult of trying to get onto the Pro Tour. They were forced to do it. They absolutely needed to play Standard, despite the fact that it's not really a diverse format. It's not really that. It can be good. I'm not going to say it's never good, but generally speaking, it's a really unbalanced format. And then what is Wizards going to do? There's like 2 or 3 decks in the format. If they don't ban cards, it's not diverse. Then if they ban cards, they like basically put off everybody who bought into the 2 to 3 decks that were actually bought for that format. It was really poor. So anyway, that's my hot take. And my other thing, and it's competing with Modern and Pioneer, which are diverse formats. And before, they didn't look like they were going to be like competitive formats, but in actuality, like, it looked like it was just going to be some sort of fringe thing on the side. But they came into like they were like a big staple to Magic the Gathering, a huge staple. They became Pro Tour formats. They were like the premier format at Magic Vegas. Pioneer is going to be taking the same role. And the last thing I want to say that's really important is that people hate rotation. Now they got a taste of Modern, they got a taste of Pioneer. They feel so robbed when they get into Standard, and then about, anywhere between up to a year later, they realize, oh, my cards are rotating, they're worthless now. What the hell is that? What kind of deal is this? And Pioneer is also pretty cheap. Isn't Pioneer like really cheap now? MTG Goldfish. To MTG Goldfish. Let's look up Pioneer. These prices are not bad. 480, 190, 409, 378, 250. This is the price of a lot of Standard decks. 251, 291, and some Standard decks were going insane. They were like going up to $800 because of fetch lands and stuff like that, depending on the format. 165, 195. Like these days, if you're going to spend a lot of money, and it's a diverse format, it's a very diverse format. Look at the diversity here. if you're going to spend a lot of money, if you're going to dump any number of hundreds of dollars, you might as well do it on Pioneer instead of Standard. And it feels the same thing anyway. It's just a big, weird, open Standard here. Alright, but those are my explanations. What are yours? Alright, let's start off with Beanpot! Arena killed the Standard event. Now, that's a very interesting point. You could, if you want, play Magic the Gathering on Arena for free. 1,000,000%. You don't have to put any money into it. So anyone that's sinking money into, like, there's a lot of grinders out there who are just willing to unlock the dailies. And you know what? If your cards rotate, not a big deal. Not a problem. Because whatever, you didn't put any money into the format anyway. So it's a lot easier to get into Standard on Arena, and you don't care about what you lose on Arena because you didn't invest anything anyway. Unless you're a really hardcore player. But for all the casuals out there that just want to get their Magic fix just to have some fun, I think that's a really good point. Arena, like, basically sucks away a lot of the incentive to buy into Standard. Remember, this is paper Standard that we're talking about here. I don't want to say, like, Arena, the client, killed Standard. Because that's a lot like saying Magic the Gathering Online kills Modern. Magic the Gathering Online kills Pioneer and Legacy, which is actually not true. But I think the free-to-play aspect on Arena disincentivizes you to spend any money on actual Standard. But maybe I'm wrong, or maybe you guys think that just the Arena client, the fact that it's so nice, so fun, graphics and play are great, that it just completely wiped out Standard in paper. But it would be hard to distinguish between the two. All right, we got Cooler King. Thanks so much for the super chat. I always felt that there should be a tribal format where 20 of your 60 cards should feature a specific tribe. I love the idea, Cooler King. We got to make it happen. All right, we got... What else do we have? Pioneer is the new Modern. It is, actually, and Modern is the new Legacy. And a lot of people... Look, we learned this lesson with Extended. Do you know why Extended is dead? Extended is dead. It doesn't exist anymore. It got killed off. And the reason Extended died was because people hated rotation. Rotation. No one likes rotation. Standard was the last rotating format in existence. And it still is. And it still has that problem. Nobody wants any of that. Nobody wants that rotation. It's a real burner. It's a real feel bad. I have to admit, I was big in Extended. And when they rotated Extended for the first time, that's when I took my first huge Magic break. Because I'm like, all of my fun cards are gone. Like, I can't play with them anymore. Alright, we got Shadow Walker. Standards for tournament grinder that have like 3 to 4 decks max forming the meta. Yeah, and as we now know, Magic is not built on the tournament grinders. There's less tournament grinders than people think. And also they have to accommodate casual players to a very large extent. And this is no fun. 3 to 4 decks that exist. And by the way, the pro players loved Standard for that reason and hated Modern. Very, very much in the earlier days that you always hear, I don't know what deck to play in Modern. I can't find one. I can't pick the right deck. Whereas in Standard, it was always easy. There's only like 2 to 3 decks, and well, you just play test the 3, and then boom, you'll have your answer. Lord Magicus, I stopped playing Standard when War of the Spark came out. The shift in design ruined it for me. Did the shift in design ruin it for anyone else? Now is it's too powerful. That's when they started making Standard really powerful. What do we have here? Rodrigo, Simon, some people argue that Modern Horizon sets are a soft rotation for Modern because so many powerful powerhouses are printed that pushes some decks out of existence, aka humans. I agree and I disagree. I think it does, those sets rock Modern a lot, but it's up to those players. See, if someone wants to stick to a certain 75 and never move away from it, that's true. But in actuality, the onus is on you as a deck designer, as a player of that deck, to evolve with the deck. Like, for example, I don't know why humans players haven't experimented with Ephemerate, which would solve their problems versus like Solitude and Fury and whatever, because the Ephemerate goes great in the deck. They have a lot of ETBs. So I actually think humans is quite playable, but no one wants to try it. Is Pioneer already the new Modern? What's Modern then? Is well, Modern is like Legacy now. It's complete. It's basically Legacy. They want big money casual collector types, but they already have them, and they're just milking it at this point. We already have the big casual. We already have the big casual players that we can make money off of. By the way, what does that have to do with Standard? Standard was a format that was supposed to be an entry point into Magic the Gathering, like an entry point into the game. And what's it called? And like the format is now competing with Modern, with Pioneer. It's not offering the same amount of, like, the same fun of gameplay as the other formats are, and it is now in strict competition. Maybe you're talking about like now Commander fills up the seats. Command. Oh, I get it. That's right. Commander is the new entry point. I get it. That's right. Commander is the new entry point. The entry point, and that entry point can be like $100. It could be whatever you want. So casual is like a big influence into people getting into the game. Actually, that's a very interesting point. I met someone at my local game store that said that they went through that sort of chain of first going into the game through Commander, and then they started out trying out Draft, and then they started trying out Modern. So actually there is actually a lot of merit to that. Commander is the reason why the secondary market goes bonkers. No, that's true. I just can't afford Standard anymore. There haven't been any really good budget decks since Cycling rotated. That's interesting. That's actually very, very interesting. Wait, is Standard so expensive? Hold on. Let's go back to MTG Goldfish. Let's see. Standard... 473. See, that's the thing. Like, we were looking at the Pioneer decks. Like, if you're gonna spend around $400, you would rather put it into a deck that you can change and evolve over time. Now, they do have some of these super budget decks. We have $73, $114, $450, $288, or it's now $450, $288. It's in that 300, 400 range that we saw in Pioneer. Can we go back to Pioneer? It overproducing products that kids can keep up with. It not the format. It's overproducing products that kids can keep up with. I don't understand what this means. Emil says, I feel if you want to go casual, you go Draft/Commander. If you go competitive, you go Modern. Draft can be a very competitive format. I mean, Draft is a casual format. I mean, like, they're all casual formats if you want to take them like that. However, Commander is strictly made to be a casual format, although they do have some more hardcore players there. I mean, what can I say? Like, a good chunk of people always want to play, like, a good chunk of casual and a good chunk of competitive. Most people are, how do I put it? Like 85% of people are casual players, and then there's like a 15% of players who want to take it a little bit further. They want to take it to the next level. But before we get any further, we gotta thank our sponsors. Fusion Gaming Online. Ooh, I've been looking at Master of the Pearl Tridents, you see. FusionGamingOnline.com. Deal of the week. Save 25% off all D&D products and books. D&D coming back. I mean, hey, a lot of Magic players play D&D. And if you need any other singles or sealed product, you don't forget to use my coupon code Nikachu at checkout to get yourself 5% off all your purchases at FusionGamingOnline.com. We're also going to thank Mana Traders, the premier place for renting Magic cards online. It is the cheaper way. Hey, Standard's actually really cheap to play on Magic the Gathering Online. A lot of people don't even know you can play Standard. You can play whatever decks you want. There was actually many times where Magic Arena costs like hundreds of dollars to keep up with the Standard metagame, but actually on Magic the Gathering Online, it costs like pennies, and it costs even less when you're using Mana Traders, and you can like play whatever like standard deck you want. You can support the channel using my Mana Traders link in the description below, or save 10% off your first 2 months using coupon code Nikachu RUE. All right, now back to Aaron Forsyth. Okay, we got Viridian Shallows. I quit Magic at the beginning of COVID. A mix of ridiculous prices, too many releases to keep up with, massively dislike Wizards as a company, and the MTG scene in the UK is drying up big time. Oh, Levy said, Levy asks, is Magic Traders physical renting or just digital? Just digital, not physical. Okay, I quit Magic at the beginning of COVID. A mix of ridiculous. Okay, so that's a really good point that a lot of people forgot about, but COVID it is a weird thing. So stuff like Modern and Pioneer, when you have your deck, you just evolve it over time. And there are people who had their deck at the beginning of pre-COVID. COVID happens, COVID ends. Well, I'm not going to say COVID ended, but basically, you know, paper play returns, and the, what's it called? The, you still have your Modern deck, and it's still playable. Like, maybe you got to upgrade it or something, but it's still there. Whereas with Standard, 2 years go by, and it wipes out everybody. Everybody who could possibly have played Standard, their deck is not legal anymore after, like, a 2-year hiatus. So that is a huge beating for the format. A gigantic beating. Arceus says, did you see Bank of America put out a report saying Hasbro is overprinting and raising prices too much? I didn't see that. Bold statement from Bank of America. Servidian says, yeah, COVID killed Standard. They need to come up with a way for players to use new cards beyond their drafts. Yeah, it's called well, it's supposed to be Standard, and it's also supposed to be Pioneer. Azzy Flash says the quality of the sets have gone down considerably. Well, that depends on your... That depends on, I guess, your opinion on, like, what means quality sets. Like, in my opinion, they are pushing the power level, but that could be good for the people who want more interesting cards to flow into Pioneer and Modern. But then, of course, there's a bunch of people who are like, they hate it when things change drastically in Pioneer and Modern. But they did ramp the power level up. It, like, ramped up big time. Big ramp. Dar says, yeah, I tried to keep up with Standard, but became too expensive. I mean, it is a bit stupid that, you know, for the your entry point into the game ended up being, like, it just started shredding your money like crazy. Honestly, it always did that, but it was not so extreme. Like, you know, you could get a lot of Standard decks for, like, $50, $100. But again, they were casual decks. They were never, like, competitive. Dan W. Standard has a pseudo-rotation about every 3 months. Not enough people in my area can keep up with the cost and time to maintain Standard decks. And there's no motivation. Like, right, when was the last time they said, okay, you got to play Standard if you want to, like, get on that Pro Tour? I don't think there's any, or maybe I'm wrong. Or, like, RCQ Standard. Maybe I'm out of the Pro Tour loop. Whenever, like, there's some news about, like, organized play or something, I basically tune out because I have, like, no interest in making it to the Pro Tour. Yeah, but Standard has always rotated. It's not popular now because Wizards of the Coast hasn't put to effort in cultivating the format and expects the money to keep rolling in. Well, hey, keep in mind they make these sets 2 years in advance. They make the sets like way in advance, like years in advance. So like the Standard we see now is like the Standard they were cultivating even before COVID started. So, well, I mean, how do I want to respond to this? I think the effort that they're putting in Standard is basically a similar level as they do now. Or, I mean, they had the Future League, and maybe the Future League has taken a little bit of a break to compared to what they used to, because they used to have like less to play test. They had they basically just focused on Standard and a little bit of Modern at one point. And maybe they're now getting really stretched thin, but I don't know. I can't really speak to it. Frankly, they've always play tested it to like a 3-deck format anyway, for the most part. That's my opinion. Like the metagame has never been super diverse in historically. Sometimes it gets really diverse, but not always. It's not popular because of the price. The price is not that insane. I want to remember, how much money did I spend on my Mono Blue Devotion deck when it came out in Ravnica, and I think I spent some good money on it. Those Thassa's Master of Waves and Jace Architects of Thought weren't going to buy themselves. Ding dong, it's disappointing to see these cute synergies between uncommons and rares, and then you see your opponent beat you down with a single mythic. Okay, that is a true story. The what's it called? The ramping of the power level of these Standard sets have like washed away a lot of synergy out of the decks. Azzy says draft is the ultimate skill test, which is why I'm so bad at draft. Me too. Azzy, we're in the 0-3 bracket club. Everyone join the 0-3 bracket. Who else is in the 0-3 bracket club? I'll admit, draft is super skill intensive, and one of the main reasons is because you have to make your own deck. I mean, it tests your deck construction skills. How well are you able to play on a curve? Do you understand mana bases? And it's heavily creature based. Let's say it's heavily creature based format. So I don't get it. Does this mean Standard is officially abolished? Nope. Just as Aaron Forsyth says, Standard has like dried up in paper play. In fact, I don't even know where to play Standard locally. I got not a clue. If there's Standard somewhere in Winnipeg, show me where it is. Not that I'm going to actually play in it though. But Standard online is very healthy. It is now like almost strictly a digital format. John says, if I can buy 90% of a Legacy deck, minus Force and some lands for the price of Standard, why would I bother with Standard? Well, because maybe Standard is the only format that is played locally. Like, normally, like, Standard it had, like, a day, right? Like, everyone had a local game store that had a Standard day. Okay, it's Standard day, go play Standard. But now, you look at the competition, now there's probably a Modern day, there's a Pioneer day, there's a Commander day, there's a Draft day. You know, at some point, Standard going to get squeezed out for something else. We got Doom Diat. Not a unique take, but probably a combo of EDH and Arena getting more popular. New EDH players at my shop are almost all former Standard players who got tired of rotation. Arena is cheaper for Standard. Arena is so cheap, you can play it for free. Costs you nothing. Absolutely nothing. Oh, we got super chats coming out of nowhere. We've got the Dancing Odie. Hey, Nikachu, just want to say I love your content and have binge watching it, all of it. Thank you very much. You're welcome, Dancing Odie. I appreciate it. I know it's a binge-worthy type of content. Frosty the Ghost Man, thank you so much. The standard metagame may be great, but if no one has a clear path for competitive play, it will wither away. I personally think that they should promote standard as a casual format, honestly. I made mention of that years ago, that like standard is unbalanced, everyone's always complaining about it, but it's like it's a fine entry point into Magic the Gathering, especially at a really casual level. Like there's great budget decks at like $30. When I go to like my local game store and I watch the standard players play, it's like a few people are playing the super hardcore tier 1 decks, and there's just a bunch of other people just playing random nonsense that they want to play because they want to have fun. And actually, that environment works great because sure, they'll lose to the super tier 1 decks, but then they'll have like some good games amongst each other as at a casual level. So I actually think that they should promote standard more as a casual format than a competitive format. The moment it's competitive, then they get the pros to break it, or like just arena to break it, and then the lists get published, and then it's not as enjoyable, I think. And even as a competitive player, I don't think standard is enjoyable because you see the same matchups come up over and over and over again. Now that people have a taste of modern, now that people have a taste of pioneer, like some really diverse formats, they realize, why do we put up with this nonsense? They just put up with it because I guess that's how it always been. Let Pauper replace standard. I think Pioneer is a really good replacement to standard. I don't know why no one like takes that seriously. Everyone just switching to Pokemon. I don't think that's true. That's a bunch of nonsense. Anyone remember Type 2? Yeah, Type 2, Type 1.5, Type 1. Got everyone. What's Type 1? If I asked you what's Type 1, does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's like some lingo that only the old timers would know. See, we got A-Dog saying 1.5. Type 1 was, yeah, it was extended. Oh, sorry, hold on. No, whoa. I think I got it mixed up. Sorry. Type 1 is vintage. Type 1.5, I believe, was extended. That's what it was extended at the time. Type 1, yeah, number 1 is vintage. 1.5, well, I guess 1.5 now would be legacy because we don't have extended. Like back in the day, extended was legacy before it rotated. Then it sucked. There we go. Vintage 1, extend 1.5, modern 2. Correct. As far as I know, if I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was like a little kid at the time. Speaking of old timers, was Grandpa Nikachu gonna make another appearance? I don't know. I used to think the views for that skit was good, but like, you know, my views are getting way higher than that now. Wait, people play Pokemon TCG? I thought it was just for streamers to open packs. No, people actually play the game. It's hey, that is another interesting take, maybe that we've come across. I don't know if anyone mentioned it in this thread, but like now, like an entry point into a TCG has a lot of competition. Just like choosing your TCG. You could play Flesh and Blood, you can play the Pokemon TCG, you can play Yu-Gi-Oh! There's now a lot of options. And a few of them developed significantly over the course of the pandemic. Pokemon MTG is lit. Truth be told, I first got into the Pokemon trading card game, and then I moved to Magic the Gathering. He says, you know, in some way, I'm sure Pokemon TCG is good for Magic the Gathering because it will acquire. If anyone never played a TCG before, but everyone knows Pokemon, they'll get into that TCG and they'll like, I like TCGs. Are there better ones? And they go find their way to Magic the Gathering, like I did. Then W, what would it take to convince a bunch of Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy players to also play Standard? What would it take for you to play Standard? You can't get me to get into Standard. It's impossible. Like, I mean, one of the biggest reasons I hated Standard is that I can't play a deck I want to play. So I did get back into the game around 2012, 2013, right before Theros came out, and I was playing Standard. I was playing like that Reanimator deck, which Angel of Serenity. What was it called? It was like Junk Reanimator. That's what it was called. And then I planned on dumping Standard when the next set comes out to go focus on Modern. But lo and behold, the next set that came out was... Because I love blue decks, and I didn't really care for the Standard decks that I played. But then the next Standard format that came out was Theros with Master of Waves. And, what's it called? Thassa. God of the Sea. So, 5/5 indestructible. Anyway, these super powerful blue cards. Turns out there was a mono blue deck in Standard that was a killer tier 1 deck. And so I did playing Standard for another, about at least a year, a whole solid year before I could focus on Modern. Although I did start playing Modern in that time. And actually, this Mono Blue Devotion deck encouraged me significantly to try out Merfolk, by the way. If you want to know my origin story. So that's what got me to playing... what's it called? Standard a little bit longer than I wanted to. But the thing is, I like playing blue decks. I want to play Mono Blue. And honestly, actually, there was a blue tempo deck with Curious Obsession. I did play quite a bit of that Arena Standard at the time. And then the moment they added more sets and that blue deck sucked, I stopped playing again. So for me, who likes to play a certain style of deck, I might play Standard if that deck exists. But if it doesn't, and very often it doesn't, I don't play Standard whatsoever. Schmackle says, I strictly play Commander nowadays. Kai says, back in the day, you could play anything you wanted in Standard, but now since Standard is always solved, there's no draw to it over, say, Pioneer. Grizzly Salvage Junk Reanimator. That's right. That was it. That's what I played. Martin says, for Standard, to get back to high participation, I think the booster packs need to be way cheaper. It's far too expensive to end up with full play sets of anything. Or just like the bomb cards can't be all pushed to Mythic Rare. Because if everything is a Mythic Rare, if all the good cards are Mythics, and you need all those Mythic cards, that will raise the price of all the decks on the secondary market. Overall, I don't think the price of the Standard packs have increased all that much. It's actually, they did do a price increase, but for the most part, I think Standard packs have been pretty flat. They just did an increase for the first time in like a bazillion years. Isn't Pioneer cheaper than Standard nowadays? About similar prices. The prices are really similar. So if you were going to spend some money, you might as well dump it into Pioneer. Might as well. A really good question. Does anyone have any Standard... Like, is there like a Standard day at your local game store? Or is it just not even scheduled anymore? And no one even tries? Standard is super cheap comparatively. Only if you want to play at a casual level. Usually. Probably need another Fable Passage or Prismatic Vista. I guess so. I don't know what that's out of. Yvonne says, out of topic, but if power level of a card rises this year, you could pick a Standard deck in the past and compete it with Standard now. Which do you think have a higher chance of winning? A Standard... it's hard to tell. You know what? I love... One thing that SCG did every so often was like they would compete Standard decks with Standard decks from different eras, and it was very interesting. They would sometimes put up a Standard deck from what would look like a really underpowered era up against like a super powerful era Standard deck, and the low power era Standard deck crushed it. So, you know, I don't know, it's you never know. You never know. Sometimes simple, straightforward decks do very well versus even like decks loaded with planeswalkers. Some decks, like, hey, let's take for example, What was that stupid deck called? The artifact that used energy and put creatures in play. Someone help me. What was that card called? I don't even remember what it is anymore because I don't remember what the hell the deck doesn't see any play anymore. And sees no play in Pioneer. Was it Aetherworks Marvel? Aetherworks Marvel. Yeah, it was Aetherworks Marvel. Aetherworks Marvel was only good because there was like no interaction to this artifact. But actually the deck in theory might have been really bad. It might have been really bad. It has no, as far as I know, it has no presence in Pioneer whatsoever. It has no presence in Pioneer. Because the deck is just, like, it's actual trash. The problem is there was no hand disruption, there was no pithing needle, there was no way to just this Aetherworks Marvel deck. But it's possible that any deck would beat this. Any deck from any standard era could beat this deck. So long as they had any interaction for the damn thing. Like, is there Marvel? Gruul, Aggro, Mono Red, Boros, Teamer, Esper. For a deck that completely dominated standard... it doesn't exist outside of that format. The deck is just absolute trash. It just so happens it was just a really good deck to goldfish into, and there was no way to interact with it. Like, one pithing needle shuts this whole deck down. Do you think Pioneer or Modern is more of a Brewer's paradise? I think both. I would say definitely more to Pioneer. Because the power level is lower. Like, basically, you can still brew in Modern. I mean, we see Aspiring Spike do it all the time. But you have to, like, basically always include the powerful cards. So I would say it's just expensive to brew in Modern. Because you always need to throw in Ragavan if you're playing red. Or almost always throw in Ragavan when you're playing red. And all sorts of other stuff. So it's more expensive. Whereas in Pioneer, I think it's cheaper to brew. They literally considered making invention standard legal just because of Aetherworks Marvel and Needle being an invention. That is such... that is awesome. They should have done that. Why didn't they do that? What a blunder. That would have been so cool to have in standard. That would be a really neat take on standard. Let old cards be legal again. Let Mana Crypt be legal in standard. Of course they'll ban it instantly, but... Where's the Pro Tour? I don't know. I don't even follow the Pro Tour anymore. Hey, Martin says, Pop or EDH, your commander can be uncommon as there are almost no legal legendaries could be fun. That's totally a possibility. That could be an entry point into Magic. It's definitely, it's definitely a way of or that, commander is one of the reasons why standard has gotten obliterated. Jonah says, this is a long shot, but standard on Arena is crazy inaccessible due to the terrible wildcard economy. So new players who come to Magic by playing Arena are discouraged to play it as well. I think... Well, this sort of... It's not a super long shot. Like, if you want to play competitively, I think this is true. And if you want to play competitively and you want to have the hot deck at a moment's notice whenever it comes out, that could be discouraging. But for the most part, it's free, right? Like, if you just grind on Arena, it's free. And most players who play Standard aren't competitive players. So they're pretty complacent with the wildcard system. The economy is not good, but, like, it's only there to gouge the competitive players. And by the way, Standard is not dead. Period. It's just dying in paper. It's quite alive online. It's healthy. It's good because it's free. You get what you pay for. It's nice and free. And if the cards rotate, no feel bad. Whatever. You just put in free hours into it anyway. They just had a huge economy update. I heard. I don't know what it's all about because I don't play Standard and I don't care for what's going on in Arena anymore. Why do I say Standard just died? Because of what Aaron said. Over the past few years, Standard play has dried up in many stores. It's the paper Standard has died. I have my own list of possible reasons, but I'd love to hear from you about your store community. Why has sanctioned Standard play declined relative to other formats in your store? So standard online is fine. I'm a YouTuber. I gave you a clickbait title. You clicked and now you're here. But this is the nuanced title. This is the real title. Frosty the Ghost Man made it to Mythic and Explorer with a Rakdos deck I didn't pay a cent for. Just takes time to build up the collection. And then you can build the collection even faster if you're a drafter. But that's the problem. The economy is really friendly to the drafters, but the drafters don't need the friendly economy because they're drafting. They're not playing with the cards in standard. Richie Dub says, if I wanted to play standard online, it would be on Magic the Gathering online and not Arena. That is a based take. That is a super based take. Sick Josie, standard is the best format, but the problem is too many of the similar decks. You can build good non-meta decks, but what can you do since MTG makes zero money on standard? Wait, and you know what? I think they do make good money on standard on Arena for anyone that does pay for the wild cards. It's because the sets change, new powerful decks come out. There's a new tier 1 deck. People have to start buying more buying more stuff to keep up with the standard format. But I want to just brush on this because a lot of people used to assume that standard sold the boxes. That was actually a point that always people said, well, you can't get rid of standard because it sells packs. It's the pack seller of Magic the Gathering. Who would buy the new standard set if it wasn't for standard? But then as COVID has proven to us over the last 2 years, tons of people are buying these boxes even though it's not for standard. Simple as that. Simple as straight up as that. Like, the Commander players buy the boxes because they just like to buy boxes. They want access to all the new goodies. Even though standard, there was no paper standard for the last 2 years, Wizards of the Coast made a killing selling product. I think the idea behind standard is very cool, says El Grande. But on paper, it's inaccessible to most people. Also, because the format is so limited, there's very limited deck variety. Well, here's the deal. The format can be diverse so long as the power level of a few decks aren't too high. I always found that the format is really diverse when no one is playing powerful cards, or like no particular deck is like monopolizing all the powerful cards. But what usually happens in standard is a few decks can make best use of the best cards, and then every other deck can't compete around it. At a competitive level. At a casual level, you can do whatever you want. Richie says, I quit standard because it's a constant chase. Every set you got to upgrade your deck with all these new cards, and you're constantly chasing. And then, you know what? And that's a thing Wizards wants you to do. Like, Wizards hates it when a new standard set comes out and no one's playing any of the new cards. Like, it was just an underpowered set. So it is... Wizards is in this situation of always pumping out better and better and better cards, changing the format every single set that comes out. Dark Star! Sure, some of the stuff that is ruining standard is people at Wizards of the Coast just saying, no, you need to stop. Tamero, like, companions? But companions didn't change standard. I think, like, did companions even matter in standard? I don't think it made a big deal. And the deck construction thing, I mean, in this case, standard ruined modern. It ruined the non-rotating formats, but I think standard was all in one piece. Although, honestly, I didn't pay attention to the standard format at the time. Was anyone playing standard at that time? In paper, that is. We got John from accounting. How many decks existed in Theros standard? 5 devotion decks. Red, green, aggro, is it tempo, Esper control, all competitive. Nope! I would disagree on that point. In the Theros standard, there were 3 competitive decks, and then but everything else, including that red aggro deck, and those are all fringe decks. There were 3. There was a blue-white control deck. There weren't 5 devotion decks. Okay, there was Blue-Eye Control, there was Mono Blue Devotion, Mono Black Devotion. That was the format. That was the format, and everything else was just fringe stuff. I was there. People tried to play Mono Red at first, but it just fell flat. Like, in the first Pro Tour, there was Mono Red, but after a few weeks, people just realized Mono Blue and Mono Black were above and beyond better than all the other Devotion decks, and no one played Mono Red for the rest of the format. It just came down to Blue-Eye Control, Mono Blue, and Mono Black. And then that was standard for an eternity. Andrew says, my store quit standard about the time of Ixalan. Whoa! Whoa! That's a long time ago. So this may be the roots of standard disappearing from paper play. Run far earlier than COVID. Uphill says, can't wait for Wizards of the Coast to try companions again, but fixed this time, except they're just as bad. That's possible. Who knows? Josie again with, Morrow is great for MTG, but he has too many ideas and not enough people around him telling him that not every idea is a good idea. I think with the companion thing is everyone said that it was a bad idea. I think he had... I don't think he didn't say so, but I think he alluded that he pushed it into the set. Like, we're doing this, and probably everyone else around him was like, I don't know about this one, Marrow. No, it's gonna be great. Just watch. I'm no Marrow hater. I love Marrow. Mark Rosewater is great. Levy, thank you so much for the super chat. Who is this Aaron guy anyway? Oh, come on, be nice. He's the vice president of Wizards of the Coast. He's one of the big head honchos. The vice president. Who's the president? Why isn't Aaron president at this point? Hearing Nikachu say that Ixalan was a long time ago like that makes me feel old. I know! Doesn't anyone else feel like the last 2 or 3 years feels like an eternity? God, it feels like a really long time. I never like standard because it's not appealing to constantly invest and update your deck. Well, you can say the same thing about modern now, but modern is still holding true. My biggest fear with standard is you're constantly upgrading and updating your deck, and then you know the cards are going to turn to trash within rotation, and it rotates every single year. Whereas you may be constantly upgrading your deck in Modern or Pioneer, but you know those cards can be part of your toolbox. Maybe they'll come back at another time, so you can hold on to them in your toolbox binder. Whereas with Standard, you know, they're just dead. They're gone. And they might be worthless. They may not see any play beyond Standard. Squid Flamed says, I got into Magic when... We got a lot of Kirby avatars here today. I got into Magic when Forgotten Realms came out, so I've never experienced Standard. Shout out to King Deedle... Is it King DDD? Yeah, King DDD, that's the big boss. There's literally an article from 2015 where they dunk on Marrow for Companion being stupid as hell. Yeah, I know. They regurgitated that up. It's like, it was like an old idea. It was like a really old idea that was play tested, and they said it was garbage. And then he brought it back. He's trying to make constructed format a little like Commander. Honestly, I like the concept. I have nothing against companions being a concept. I really have nothing against them. I like the idea. Whoops. What's going? I like the idea of having like a Commander-like card that I can play in constructed. Maybe that's got to be a thing. Maybe that's the creature format that we heard about. Maybe they've got to have a clause. You can have a legendary creature as your commander in constructed, but every creature in your deck has to match that creature type. Just for the tribal decks. Just for the tribal decks. Prize support tanked. Did it? I mean, I don't know. What's the prize support at your local standard? Like, the prize support should be the same as like Modern or Pioneer, wouldn't it? Marrow is a trickster god. Radiant Realms. Yeah, the thing about Standard is you can't be a serious casual player. Keeping up is a part-time job. That is also true. I mean, like, a nice thing about Modern and Pioneer is, like, you play it for, like, 6 months, and then you can leave for, like, 2 years, and you basically have still the same feel for your deck and what's going on in the metagame. In Standard, that's literally impossible. You keep your eye off of it for a year, and it's a completely different world. A whole new world. The theme song to Standard. Also, Standard's greatest issue is that it's a format dominated not by deck, but by cards, like Ristic Studies put it. It's a format dominated, yeah, not by decks, but by cards. No, that's why when the power level of certain cards get too high, and you have to play those cards. If you can't play those cards, you might as well be playing with a tier 3 deck. The first time I ever bought a single was Stormtide Leviathan. That's how old I am. Not that old in MTG parlance, but that was nearly a decade ago, I think. The last Standard single I bought... I don't know, is that Curious... Honestly, I bought that Curious Obsession deck. I think it was like 50 bucks. It was like really cheap. So I had like it was a deck I like to play, and I could easily buy it for paper. So it was like a really easy deck to buy into. I wonder, for anyone that owns a local game store, is Standard good when the decks are all super cheap? Like, they're just constantly rotating these 50 cent and $1 cards? Or, like, at what price point is it good for stores? Like, maybe $10 rares or $5 rares are the best. They keep churning and burning back and forth. Because obviously, if the price of a card gets too high, then it's not moving nearly as much. They like it. The stores, they like it when you sell them like you sell a $5 card back to them for $3, and they resell it back to you for $5. They're just moving tons of $5 cards, but I don't know what I don't know what the perfect price point is. Welcome, Zeke Fox. You're never late. There's always a replay. Battle for Zendikar Standard was great for stores. They should abolish Mythic Rarity to revitalize Standard. That actually is a take. That is, ever since they made Mythic Rare. And, like, even when I was playing in, what's it called, the 3-deck format of Theros Standard, one reason it was a 3-deck format, it was because Master of Waves, Mythic. Thassa God of the Sea, Mythic. And then you look at the Blue-White Control deck, the Planeswalkers were Mythic. And I can't remember if how many cards in the Mono Black Devotion deck were Mythic. Maybe not as much, but like the best Mythics ended up taking a good chunk of the metagame. First single I bought was Revised Release of Force of Nature with my allowance. First single I ever bought was just a Thieving Magpie. Josh! To be honest, I never played Standard. Before, I had the money to keep up with Standard. I didn't have the money. Or sorry, before I had the money to keep up with Standard, I didn't have the money, so I played what I had. Now that I have the money to keep up, I play Commander. You know what? Now that I talk to you guys, I think Commander probably has the largest influence on Standard paper play. Like, it's a really popular format that people, it's still good for Wizards of the Coast, Commander. As they print new sets, people want to upgrade their decks with all these new cards. They want to make new decks and build them around new cards. And it's much more friendly to your wallet because you get to play with these decks for eternity. There's still a really good entry point into the format. And it's fun, and it's a casual format. See, that's what I wanted Standard to be at one point. Commander killed Standard. Which is maybe not a bad thing. But then what are they going to do online? So what is, like, Standard on Arena just going to be a specific, like, Arena online thing? It's like a, you know how, like, how do I put it? Vintage is a Magic the Gathering online exclusive. Now Standard will be an MTG Arena exclusive. Can't play Standard anywhere except on MTG Arena. Hobo Magic, no card over 25 cents. That could be a thing. I think that if there are 6+ decks in Standard with cards with high power level and price point, I reckon $15 per copy of card, I reckon you can have a high-powered and varied metagame for Standard. You could, but the thing is, it's so hard for them to construct like a diverse standard metagame. It's just nearly impossible. Even with the team that they have at Wizards of the Coast, it's just near damn impossible to have a... Unless they are willing to aggressively ban cards. But if they're going to aggressively ban cards, it will be all the money cards, which they'll never do. They got to keep the money cards. They keep all the good mythics. They'll do everything they can to prevent banning the mythic cards. They'll never do it. Especially if the face of that card is on the booster pack and booster box. It's immortal. It's absolutely immortal. Zeke Fox says, what about online format / games? Hearthstone has a standard format, but you're not paying $40 a card for a playset of something. No, online is going to live. It's going to live, and it's a great entry point into Magic Online. And it's free. Remember, it's completely free. And you start at the bottom, right? So, like, when you get in online, you start at the absolute bottom, and you're playing against other people, more or less, at the absolute bottom. And as you unlock the dailies, you get to upgrade your deck and move up. It's all good. And you'll play around people around your play strength and maybe that jank level of your deck, because as I understand, Wizards looks at... Arena sort of looks at the construction of your deck to tell if it's a tier deck or not. So if you're playing jank, casual jank, they'll put you in the casual jank queue. And if you're playing with a tier deck, they'll put you in the tier queue. The more competitive queue. Too many legendary cards in each set. Well, that's for Commander. They are now making these standard sets for Beyond Standard. They're making them for Pioneer. They're making them for Modern. They're making them for Commander. They're making it for everyone. Frosty the Ghostman. Meathook Massacre took a year to ban from Standard because they wanted to make sure the Midnight Hunt boxes were out of their warehouses first. That's crazy what they'll do. But that's another thing. Like I said, they're always in this weird spot that, you know, there's certain decks just rise to the top and dominate over everything else. And they are in a really bad spot. If they either ban the card or cards to make the format more diverse, but if they do that, they're going to peeve everyone off because everyone bought Meathook Massacre or everyone got involved with that deck. Or they do nothing and the metagame is just really poor. They should make Magic the Gathering 2. Yeah, the update. What would that even look like? To be honest, Magic the Gathering is already in its like 203rd upgrade. Ding Ding says, why not balance the mythics for Modern instead of this weird half-life between organized play in Standard and useless in Pioneer? You mean make mythics for Modern? Modern's a really powerful format, so there's actually there's a big argument that you don't want to be making too many cards for Modern, because the cards for Modern and Commander just dominate Standard, which is a much weaker, lower power format. So really, they should be balancing the mythics for Standard, and then if they are good enough for Modern, then so be it. Star Trek CCG had part 2. Oh my god. Aren't the unsets Magic the Gathering 2? Yeah, you could say that, I guess. Organized play stands for overpowered. You have no idea how long it took me to realize what OP stand for. Like, I actually looked at it like that. Oh, like, why do they keep talking about overpowered? Overpowered this, overpowered that. It took, like, I don't know, maybe a year for me to find out that OP meant organized play. Most powerful cards in Legacy are all commons. That actually might be true. What, like, pawn? Well, Force of Will's uncommon. You know, you're making me think. In Legacy, maybe the most powerful cards are actually commons and uncommons. Because every so often they make a broken common or uncommon. But then again, things like Ponder and Brainstorm are only good because fetch lands exist. If you get rid of the fetch lands, those cards become poop real fast. Jonathan says the cost of Standard is too high. In paper, yes. There's no free way of playing it in paper. Magus of the Bargain says, the commons should be the best cards. The uncommons should be the best against certain colors, and the rares should be good only in specific decks, and the mythics should be good only in very specific decks. Oh, you mean so it's the rares should be really hard to make work? I want to say that already happens, but maybe not. Because I think the rares and the mythics basically are in very specific decks, but it's because of that only those decks exist, or only that shell of a deck exists. But maybe I'm wrong. David says, OP can also mean original poster, referencing the original poster of a forum thread. That's also true. Also true. It's OP! Darkstar, if Hasbro stops having a grip on Wizards of the Coast, I think MTG would turn around. That's also possible. Hasbro having a grip on Wizards of the Coast makes them do very strange things. It's for this reason I think Flesh and Blood is going to become a really big competitor, because they do not have to speak to the corporate board. Although, keep in mind who controls Hasbro these days. It's the former CEO of Wizards of the Coast. What is his name? Something Cox. I can't remember. I can't remember his first name. But the point is, the current CEO of Hasbro is at least the former CEO of Wizards of the Coast. So actually, it feels like he never left, and they never replaced him too. It's been years now, hasn't it? The guy hasn't moved at all. It's the same thing. The shareholders. Or anyway. Oh, Chris. There we go. Chris Big Cox. That's right. He's got the big kahunas. All right. He's the one in charge here. He's the one moving everything. He's the big shaker. Oh, we have Darkstar with another super chat before we go. Thanks so much. Magic the Gathering 2 would just be Force of Will, the card game. Anyway, thank you very much for the big discussion. Why Standard is gone, we don't know for sure, but I think we had a lot of good explanations here today. And and after talking with all of you, I think Commander actually had maybe the largest impact. I think the two big large impacts is like no one played Standard for years, so basically everyone would be starting from absolute scratch. But also Commander is now just the casual entry point to Magic the Gathering that Standard wished it could be. And obviously they're not pushing Standard nearly as hard as they used to for organized play. Alright, you want to be here for the discussion? Be here Monday to Friday, 8 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Be there or be square. Also, thank you very much for all the support with the Super Chats. Keeps the channel going. And I've got to make sure that I'm going to be here every single morning for you guys. And thank you very much, all of you, for showing up. Because without all of you, I got nothing. I wouldn't be much of a show without you guys. You guys are the show. Man, I'm lost without all of you. So as usual, keep brewing up those coffees and we'll keep brewing up the magic. Take care of yourselves and I will see you at the next cup.